Excellent. Good. Hello, welcome. I can see some people joining already. I'll get started in just a minute. I'm opening the room up and getting my windows organized while we get started. This is going out live, and I'm also going to record it for people to watch later on video. Okay, we've got everything all set up here. Let's do that, put that there. Okay, let's get started. I did this session this morning for UK people, and I overran by 4 minutes, and I'm determined to get this done in the promised 30 minutes. I'm Matthew Stibber. I am founder and CEO at Articulate Marketing. We do websites, brand strategy, thought leadership, automation, and AI using HubSpot. And that's where I'm coming from, 20 plus years of marketing and copywriting and emailing and things. So quick plug before we start: if you would like to get a free no BS marketing review, I'm happy to look at your emails, happy to look at your website. This will be me doing it with one of my colleagues. You can book that up using my calendar link, articulatemarketing.com/meet. You can email me, Matthew at Articulate Marketing, if you have any questions at all arising from this workshop, this webinar. I'm here for you. Unfortunately, for various good and sufficient reasons, there's no live chat on this, but I'm doing this live and live and in full effect. So. Also, my next webinar is in 2 weeks about the new HubSpot AI and automation features that were announced last week at Inbound. I'm playing with them now. Lots of things that are quite exciting. I'm interested in AI and automation. I'm also interested in how to use them wisely and effectively. I think that'll be, if you're anywhere near HubSpot, that'll be a really interesting webinar. Do sign up. articulatemarketing.com/webinars. The sign up page is already there. Okay. So today I am talking about emails, creating emails that get through to people, that people actually want to read. And these are the 6 areas I want to cover in the next 28 minutes. Quite a lot to get through. And I want you to start by thinking about the emails you receive, not the ones from colleagues or from your boss that you have to pay attention to, but the ones that maybe you've signed up for, maybe the ones you find interesting, maybe you've got some Substack subscriptions. That's the kind of email that gets you noticed, builds trust, builds engagement, builds activity, calls to action and follow up. And email is still an incredibly powerful marketing tool for that reason, and think about your own experience with email. So I'm going to start by talking about creating irresistible subject lines. After all, the little short wording of the subject line is the first thing that you see when you get an email. It's the headline of the email. It's the invitation to the party. If people don't open the email, the rest of the work is irrelevant. You've got to get that first bit of writing correct. And I think the clear, most important thing is be punchy, use strong verbs, short words, clear language, and really spell out the reason, the benefit you're going to get from reading the email. All the way through this, I'm picking examples of emails I like or respect or find interesting. This is my inbox trawl. You know, your mileage may vary. My tastes and interests are somewhat idiosyncratic. I like Scott Galloway, Professor Scott Galloway, and I like this title. I picked it as an example yesterday when I was preparing this. See what others miss. Lovely short words, lovely strong verbs. Storytelling playbook is the benefit you're going to get. You're going to learn something, and he's very good at telling stories and communicating. So it's if you're aware of him, this is likely to be an interesting email. I would recommend going and looking up this No Mercy, No Malice email thing, looking at some of the others. They're all his old emails are up there on the website. Seeing some of the other examples and parsing those. There's a book by Donald Murray, who won a Pulitzer Prize, called Writing to Deadline, which is sort of my writer's Bible. Absolutely fantastic book. He said when you're writing an article for a magazine or a newspaper, you should write 50 different headlines for it, and that will help you unpack the story. Perhaps you write 50, 5, 10, subject lines for email to see which one is exactly right. Put the work into the headline. That will not be wasted work. A more curious, comical, but also serious thing is whether or not to put emojis into your subject lines. It's coming up a lot these days. I see them in a lot of emails. This is a snapshot of some emails in my inbox, and you can see HubSpot's using an emoji, Philips Hue is using an emoji to sell stuff. HubSpot's this is a B2B partner communication, so it's quite a serious thing. So a kind of professional context, B2B context, and they're still using emojis. They can be eye-catching. They can make your email stand out in a stack of otherwise text-heavy titles, subject lines. There are other ways of doing that, like capitalization, and you can see HubSpot uses the word live in capitals, Wired Health uses the word wired in capitals. Some issues with emojis is, anyone over 50 like me is going to be desperately anxious that the emoji has some double meaning that they don't understand. Also they render differently on different computers. So it might look fabulous on whatever computer you're creating the email and the emoji, but it looks comical or silly when it's on the recipient's email. So I use them more than I used to, but with some trepidation. Another way of getting the subject lines more clickable, engaging, is personalization. And I've given 3 different examples here. HubSpot uses the text that I used in creating the support ticket and my HubSpot Hub ID in this support ticket email. So it's been personalized to build trust. Like, this isn't a scam, phishing email. This is, your question to us. This is your Hub ID. Here are some things we know about you that prove that this is a legitimate email. So I think building trust is a really good example. LinkedIn uses these emails to say you've made a new connection, and it uses the first name, your first name, and then it uses the first name, and I've blurred it out here, of the person that's accepted your connection. So that's personalized in some way. And then there are a couple of examples, very subtle examples, of why personalization can go wrong. And the first one is these are spam emails that were sent to me among the 1,000 spam emails I get every month. I always think when people use our full legal name, which is Articulate London Limited, rather than our trading name, which is Articulate Marketing, I know that they're just buying that data and they're not really, they're not actually emailing me. They've got the wrong information. So even though it's correct, it's not right. And then the one underneath, growing articulate marketing without more headcount, is a good headline, good subject line, but you can see there's 2 spaces after the word articulate marketing. There's just a little glitchy moment there that gives me pause. So it can be really uncanny. It can be actually off-putting. So you have to kind of get it right. And you've seen this when you get an email where it's kind of dear first name or something like that. So data quality is also very important, as is the default fallbacks that you use. So those are some tips around the subject line. The next thing I want to talk about is amplifying your brand voice. We need finding your brand voice, because I think this is a characteristic of very successful emails. At least emails that I'm enjoying have a very clear voice to them. And I think this is something actually that you should be thinking about with all your marketing. The websites, website content, blog content, everything should have a voice to it, and you should pay attention to it and think about it. And maybe this is a little self-serving, but I think companies should spend as much time, money, and attention on their tone of voice as they do on their logo, as they do on the design of their website. This is, whatever your budget for those things is or was, that's what should be invested in tone of voice. We will see if anyone ever does that. If you've got that sort of budget, give me a call. We can spend it for you. Okay, so joking aside, here are 3 emails that I quite like that have a very distinctive tone of voice. And I think I could spot a Seth Godin email or a Scott Galloway email. If you just put it in front of me cold and said, who wrote that? I could tell you. Scott Galloway is always very opinionated, very trenchant, but he's always got these data points and charts to support his opinions, which I think works very well for him. Seth Godin's got these, purple cows and shaved yaks and these sort of strange animal metaphors. And also he writes these sort of one sentence paragraphs, which is a style. It's a deliberate choice. I think it works very well in email. Shane Parrish's Brain Food is interesting as well. Very aphoristic. Aphorisms work quite well as a start if you can pull it off without sounding too pompous. So these are 3 examples of quite distinct tones of voice. Go find yours. So let's talk about the role of AI in tone of voice and brand voice. So I'm a people first AI pragmatist. I'm not a Luddite about it, but equally I'm not like AI can replace everything and we don't have to, just because you've all had these emails that have obviously been written by AI, the sort of bland, round, smoothed pebble. They don't really say anything particularly interesting. They're not particularly arresting. And they start off with some platitudinous comments about how great you are, pulled from something you did on your LinkedIn profile. Don't mis-automate with AI. In my opinion, do the work, right? Write the email, write the things you want to say, and then you can use AI as a writing assistant to make it better. Find new things to talk about. I did a webinar a few weeks ago about AI. Sign up for that, have a look at the recording. I won't go too much into my thinking about AI, but we have a custom GPT, and this is my tip for you. Go build a custom GPT. Put your business plan in, your marketing plan, your messaging platform, your tone of voice guidelines, your personas, your ideal client profiles into the GPT, and then you can ask it to help review stuff, rewrite stuff, suggest headlines, and it's going to come up with stuff that you might use, you might edit, might be a jumping off point for your own ideas. Lots of serendipity. I love the word serendipity. In the dictionary definition I remember is it's named after 2 princes of Serendip who are always making discoveries of things they were not in quest of. Anyway, serendipity. Right, so thought leadership. This is something I care about quite a lot. I think companies need to be not only expressing their voice, but also their ideas, their expertise. And most email marketing tends to be sell, 25% off, buy now, new product. Okay, we're B2C in the commercial side of things, we're kind of used to that. With B2B marketing, which is, my game, I think you need to be relevant, useful, and interesting. I think it helps if you're opinionated or if you've got something new to say or some insight or expertise that people don't have. Sometimes a bit unexpected, a bit left field can be useful. It doesn't mean being a shock jock. It doesn't mean going out of your way to irritate people. And it doesn't mean you have to have a PhD in something. I remember a comedian once saying that your obvious is your talent. The thing you know most about can be thought leadership to somebody who doesn't know much about it, even though it's blindingly obvious to you. Equally, we've got very good bullshit detectors as human beings. We need to have our trust earned. We need to see that value, that expertise coming across. And so I think things like company news, press release type stuff, sales, over salesy type stuff isn't the way to build authority, trust, and engagement. I think about the emails you like to read, that you look forward to, that you, when you open them, you actually read them through, like this chiswickw4.com. I used to live in Chiswick, and I still am very interested in what's going on in the old neighborhood. So this kind of keeps me informed about that. And it's incredibly specific to me and some tens of thousands of other people who live in Chiswick and subscribe. But always be helping. That's my recommendation here. Emails, not the place to sell and not the place to toot your own horn. I love this email, this format from the Agency Collective. This is just telling a story. So this might be a really good way of doing case studies, like, talking about something you did for your customers without it looking like, self-serving, problem, solution, benefits, case study format. This is very specific to me. This is an Agency Collective. It's something I belong to. It's a secret society, of marketing agency owners, and they run events, and they have a Slack channel, and they send out these emails of sort of war stories. But it's written as a story, and I absolutely love that. And I read these, and then I often click on other things that they recommend, and there's usually an action, like Paul's giving a webinar about EOS. Come along and see what he has to say. Okay. I think also there's a debate about whether you should put the content of your thought leadership in the article, in the email, or whether you should link to a website. And we'll come across a Neil Patel example later in this, where he does the click on this and read it on my blog. This example is from Phillips O'Brien, who is a fascinating thinker and a historian up at St Andrews, I think. And he writes every weekend a very long email on Substack about the war in Ukraine, and often some very thought-provoking opinions and analysis, and he's very closely involved in that. So I read this every weekend and find it fascinating. And he just writes these 2,000-3,000 word essays in the email, and that works for Substack because he's already converted. I already signed up for it. He knows who I am. But if you are trying to get some sort of action, sending somebody to a website where you can get them to sign up on a webinar or take some follow-on step might be the better thing. The point here is not that one thing is better than the other thing, but you actually need to think quite carefully about what the right format of the email is and what you're going to be saying in it. For our emails, lean towards linked content. Okay. Excellent. We're about halfway through the slides and halfway through the time, so on track so far. Thank you for sticking with it. I can see nobody's left yet, so that's good. Bless you. Okay, segmentation and personalization is, I think, another facet of getting the right email in front of people that they want to read, that they want to be, they're looking forward to it, they're interested in it. So, what I mean by segmentation and personalization is, for example, if you've got a database of 20,000 people, finding the 2,000 people or the 500 people, or whatever the proportion is for you, that share some characteristic that you can talk to. So, for example, you might segment by, okay, let's jump onto this slide. You might segment by persona, you might segment by life cycle stage, by the amount of engagement they've already had in your website, by their geography. For example, at Articulate, we have an email that goes out to a group we call marketing leaders. So if you're, we know that you have a job title like marketing director, VP of marketing, something like that. So we're going to send an email about, the latest developments in marketing or webinars that I'm doing. We also target by sector. So there are a couple of sectors that we're interested in. For example, health tech. So we publish a monthly newsletter about health tech, and we have a segmentation of that. And we have all kinds of AI tools and manual tools and processes and things that are going on to try to work out, all of these things. What kind of job do you have? What kind of sector are you in? Where do you work? And there's lots of mechanisms. We use HubSpot, but there are other tools that can do this. If you've done this, it means you've got more chance of sending an email to somebody that they're likely to be interested in, like the Agency Collective sends an email to me that I'm interested in, or Chiswick W4 sends me an email that's either to do with my job, where I work, where I live or used to live. I'm going to come back to this slide that I hopped over. I think personalization also, one thing that you can do to make an email seem more personal and less spammy is actually send it from somebody, right? Instead of info@Articulate or no reply@articulatemarketing.com. Our marketing emails, for 18 years, 17 years, they all used to come from me. And then we had we invented a sort of a kind of character of Articulate, a sort of robot personality, and started sending from that. But even that reply address was monitored. And we're moving back to just sending them from me. Or if we know who the contact owner is, like somebody is in a sales process and we've assigned a salesperson to them, or they're a client and we've assigned an account manager, with HubSpot, we can actually personalize who the email is sent from. So it comes into your inbox from either me or from, an account manager that you work with, that you know. The downside, people will say, oh, don't do that because you get all these out of office messages. Well, yeah, but I mean, I might send out thousands and thousands, or we might be sending out thousands and thousands of emails, and I get 50 or 100 out of office messages. But I also get so-and-so's left the company, and I then go into HubSpot and I mark them as a former employee, and we then get to sort of not email that person at that address, so we don't, and for the amount of work it takes me to process that, I think that's worthwhile. And I think getting an email coming from my email address, I don't have to pay to send emails exactly, but pay HubSpot, but it shows some intent, it shows some commitment that we're willing to do that work. I also think the flip side of that is you want to make it really easy to unsubscribe, like one click. Don't make somebody go to a page, put in their email address, select some options. If you don't want the email, more than anything in the world, if you get an email from me and you don't want it and you click unsubscribe, I'm happy, because I won't send you any more. It'll get filtered out from our system, and I will have less risk of being labeled. If you hit this is spam button, it really affects deliverability. So make it easy to unsubscribe. Okay, talked about that, didn't we? At the heart of personalization is data quality. So things like capitalizing people's names automatically, because people, when they fill in forms, often don't, especially on a mobile, don't capitalize their own names. Having good defaults if we don't have a first name, but we're personalizing the email, deduplication, and so on. I like this idea of cleaning as you cook. So, for example, as I mentioned, if someone I get a no longer works here message, I'll go and take them out of the system. But also, if I see someone signing up for one of my webinar, thank you everyone for signing up, coming along. I'll go into HubSpot and typically I'll try and connect on LinkedIn. I'll just look at the profile. I'll try and make sure that the data is correct. So it gets a couple of minutes of my time just checking that. Now, that might be harder if we had thousands of people signing up for webinars, but that would be a nice luxury problem, and I'd get someone to do it for me. But there's room for a lot of automation, quite a lot of AI, and just for a very focused and well-planned human intervention to keep data quality up. You can't automate it without risk, I think. Fully automate it without risk. And I think a little tiny personalization tip is, if you can, send the email in the recipient's time zone. So we can capture, for example, the IP time zone when people fill in a form on our site, and we put that in the database, so we know whether they're in East Coast, West Coast, UK time, or whatever. And if we send an email out that goes out at 4 p.m, we can send it out at 4 p.m. local time for those people. We try and do that where we can. So I would rather have 1,000 engaged, well-segmented, up-to-date, sales-qualified leads and email them than 100,000 spammy random people about which I know nothing, and they've got bad data, and they're, any list of contacts, by the way, you're likely to see 10 to 20% turnover as people leave jobs, change jobs, retire, and so on. Over the course of the last, most of this year, we've been progressively tidying up our mailing list at Articulate, because we had something like 45,000 contacts, and I've seen clients with 500,000 contacts in HubSpot, and I think the same thing could happen for them. We've got rid of about 50% of those contacts. They're just deleted or marked as undeliverable, and of the remainder, we've done quite a lot to root out the disengaged, root out people that we maybe added in a fit of enthusiasm of a previous salesperson, things like that, so that we don't send emails to people we know aren't interested or don't get through. Now, there's still going to be a degree of, we think you might be interested in this, would you like to get it? But we're trying really hard to focus and distill down on well-segmented, willing recipients. And I think most companies need to do that work, as well as the creating great content and writing good emails. And for us, it's still a work in progress, but I would imagine by the end of the year, we might be down to sending emails to about 10 to 20% of the original database that we had. And yet we will have a bigger open rate, a better success rate, more click-throughs, and more engagement, because we're sending the right emails to the right people about stuff that they find relevant, useful, and interesting. Hallelujah, that's what we're aiming for. Okay, 5 more minutes, two more topics I'm going to crack on. Technical deliverability. It's great if you send lots of emails with great content to the right people. If you haven't got your technical setup right, your SPFs and your DKIMs and your DMARCs done, chances are they're going in a spam folder. Likewise, if you use spammy language, chances are they're going into a spam folder. So you need to be monitoring your email health. You need to be making sure that these technical things are done right. And I would say from a lot of clients, when we bring them on board for marketing services, when we're doing email for them, we look at this stuff and we test deliverability. I would say about a third of the people who come through the door at Articulate have got some misconfiguration in their technical setup that is affecting their email deliverability. Sometimes they're serious, most of the time they're relatively minor, but they need to be fixed. So go fix this, talk to your IT people, make sure that this is all set up correctly, not only for your regular day-to-day email, but for your marketing emails. And set up the automations and the lists and the segmentation so that you don't send emails to people who are unlikely to get your email. So people who haven't looked at previous emails and are disengaged, invalid email addresses, previously bounced, previously unsubscribed, people who used to work somewhere and don't work there anymore. If you're sending, let's say you're sending out 50,000 emails and 20,000 of those are just bouncing or being rejected or spam filtered, or they're getting a sort of previously left this job message, that signal is being picked up and it's affecting your deliverability. Also, and I'm not giving legal advice here, but I've learned recently from another client who had some issues around this. Poles, Germans and Austrians have stricter data protection rules than other places, and if you send them an unsolicited email that they didn't explicitly opt in for, you can get into some trouble and incur some cost. And there are people who make a reasonable living with a side gig raising hell with people who do this. So we now try and identify Poles, Germans and Austrians and don't email them unless we're absolutely sure, like if they're a customer and we're emailing them for that reason. Also, there's a tool called NeverBounce. There are other tools like this, but we use NeverBounce that can also indicate whether an email address is still valid and deliverable, and that can get rid of a reasonable number of undeliverable emails. So we've got this list that has various sort of categories, and I've screenshotted that in here. You need something like that, and we just exclude those people from all of our sends. Right, last thing to talk about is effective A/B testing. So I think there's two types of A/B testing that you can do with email. Assuming you've got the content and you're happy with it, that's probably another set of testing. The first thing is you can try different formats of email. So that sort of magazine style that people often do, very visual style, or this, which is the Neil Patel email, where it's short paragraphs with one call to action as a text CTA button and a postscript, in this case, two postscripts. Postscript's a really useful thing to put in an email. People click on it a lot, as they also click on the logo and any featured images. For some reason, those things should be hyperlinked. So I would suggest maybe if you're sending like multiple invitations to the same webinar, you send one in one format and one in the other. So you've got the same database of people and you're just tracking whether one has a better click-through rate than the other, maybe a visual version and a Neil Patel text-only version. Short versus long. There are lots of things you can be looking at the format. If you're stuck for what kind of formats and what good emails look like, I really like reallygoodemails.com. There's a whole library of good emails on there. You can go and sort of look at what other people are doing for different types of use cases and see whether there's anything there that you might be able to skillfully emulate. And lastly, A/B testing subject lines. If you take nothing else away from this webinar, A/B test your subject lines. You can do it automatically in HubSpot, and I'm sure other tools have similar functionality. So try different versions for every email you send out. Questions versus statements, personalization versus not personalization, with and without emojis, short versus long. So every email send can be a test of what works with your audience, right? Because it might be right for one company to put emojis and wrong for another. It just, the one set of audience might have different reactions to those things, different from another audience. So test. Every email should be a learning opportunity. And if you're writing, 2, 3, 4, 5 email subject lines and you've got two interestingly distinctive ones to test, our experience is one of them is likely to have an uplift of 5-10%, if not more. Not every test is conclusive, but if you can find something that works 5 or 10% better, jobs are good and go do it. So we're almost at the end of my talk, and I'm actually on track. Just as a reminder, I've got another webinar coming up on the 24th. If you found this one useful, hopefully you'll find the next one useful. Finally, I would be delighted to hear from you if you want to email me, if you want to book up a marketing review. Absolutely thrilled to actually meet you in person. And that is the end of the talk. And yes, exactly on 5:30. So to the minute. AJP Taylor, eat your heart out. Okay, so thank you very much indeed. That is the end of the talk. Have a fantastic morning, evening, depending on where you are. I'm out. Thanks a lot.